Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to LA Latino Chamber webinar. We are happy you've joined us this morning. My name is Olivia Rios. I'm Director of Operations here at LA Latino Chamber. Today's session is part 2 with Google and U.S. Bank on learning about investors and loan options. Our first presenter is David Mora. He's the Senior Vice President of U.S. Bank for the Emerging Business Group in Los Angeles County. He's been working with businesses for the last 20 years. Before his business banking career, he worked with 3 LA mayors, helping businesses gain access to capital and contracting opportunities. Our second presenter is Roberto Martinez, a Google digital coach. Roberto has worked with the community as a Google liaison where he educates and assists small business owners on how to leverage Google tools and services. He's also an entrepreneur and owns a digital marketing agency that works with global Fortune 500 companies. The nice thing about these 2 speakers is that they both have a passion for helping small businesses. But before we get started, I'd like to just make a note of some housekeeping rules. Please silence your phone. Be ready to learn. This session is interactive, so you can write your questions in the chat box or you can raise your hand. This session is being recorded, so it will also be available for public viewing on our website by the end of this week. So with that in mind, David, take it away.
Well, good morning, and thank you, Olivia, Jules, Roberto, and all the participants that joined us today. My name is David Mora, and I'm with U.S. Bank, and I manage the Emerging Business Group team in Los Angeles. I'm also chair of the Finance Committee for the Chamber. And I wanted to make a quick plug this morning for a program that we recently launched. And I was wondering, Olivia, can you show the slide? There's 3 slides.
Yes. Hold on one second. Here we go. Hold on one second. Can you see the slides?
Yeah. Can you make it a little bigger by minimizing the ones on the left? You just need to push it to the left. There you go. It's fine. That'll work.
Okay. I'm sorry.
There
we go.
All right. Anyhow, so as you can see, it's the Capital Access Program, or CAP, is dedicated to helping members gain access to capital. The CAP program works with small businesses across LA County to receive loans that normally may not be available to them. In a nutshell, we'll be facilitating loan requests from members to lenders and consistently be following up. You can see from the graphic there at the bottom, you see, this light bulb, you see like a human figure there, and you see these arrows. Well, that's a small business that's just growing, great idea, and grew by leaps and bounds. But sometimes, capital is an issue. Money's tied up in accounts receivable, inventory, or sometimes they just want to buy a property and create wealth for themselves, but also so that they don't have to move. There's always reasons to the need for capital. And then but on the other side, there's all these types of lenders, but sometimes our small businesses don't qualify or not ready yet. Our program's set up to help coach, our members to be able to get that type of financing. And if you look all the way to the right, you have banks, you have government, you have CDFIs, you have factory, private lenders. There's different types of capital that's available. The banks are the cheapest money that's around, but it's also the hardest money sometimes to qualify for. But there's also, in Los Angeles, there's also money available to the city of Los Angeles, the LA County, and then there's CDFIs, which, since we launched the program, when I've interviewed some of the folks that have applied to the program, the CDFIs are going to be a perfect fit. And right now we have a partnership with the Vermont Slauson Economic Development Corporation, who will help us with our small businesses. So I'm really, really, really happy about that. And I was wondering if, Roberto, if you can help us kind of show where this application is on the site.
Yeah.
Can you help us over?
So if you guys land on the site, you go to business loans, And once you get there, you'll see this particular page. And this page, you scroll down, and here it is to get started. Here's the email that you'll review, and then you're going to click on the loan application. That loan application populates, fill it out, print it out, sign it, really important, and then send it back to businessloans@lalcc.org. David, did I miss anything?
Yeah, can you go back to the homepage? I think that there was a little delay. If you can go up and then back to the homepage.
Okay.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah, so then it's right on the right all the way to the right. There goes business loans, and then if you click on that, and then that's where we're able to see before, because when the transition happened, we didn't see it from the home side, and then you go to the bottom, then you click, and so on. So, and then we're going to get some assistance on digitizing this and have like that DocuSign capabilities. So we're pretty excited about it, but this is just the beginning of our program. So thank you, Roberto, for showing that. Just kind of wanted everyone to know where that application was. And then Olivia, can you show the next two slides? Just want to make a quick plug. U.S. Bank. So the next two slides, it's just a little commercial for U.S. Bank. We're here to help power the potential of all the members' businesses. So we offer different types of solutions for working capital, equipment needs, general business purposes, and we have loans of $250,000 for small businesses. That pretty, if all you meet all the right criteria, the process is pretty smooth. For loans that are bigger than that, we have my team, and we're here and available to help. And the terms are very flexible. And if you go to the next slide, real quick, we have what we call the U.S. Bank Quick Loan Program, and again, it's to help finance the equipment needs, purchases. But what I like, if you go all the way to the bottom, it says usbank.com, fund my business. If you go on that site, if you just click on that site, it's really easy to apply for a loan, and you'll have a response potentially in about 84 hours. So it's a wonderful program, and we're very excited to have it. So thank you for showing those slides. And now I'm going to pass it back to Olivia, who's going to introduce Roberto, and who's our Google digital coach. And he's going to give us some great advice on investor and loan options. So thank you.
Thank you. So Roberto, the floor is yours.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much, Olivia, for having me here. I love the chamber, big fan. Love working with you guys. David, thank you so much for your leadership as well and your support of the chamber. Really appreciate everything you've done. And bring together such an amazing program and providing us different loan opportunities. I see you, Dario. Great seeing you, brother. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to present my screen and we'll get started just so that everyone has some access. So if you guys missed the first session was all around how to become bankable for your small business. And if you do have your audio phone on, feel free to mute yourself. We are going to have some Q&A section at the end of this conversation in about 40 minutes. In the meantime, if you have any questions as I'm going through this presentation, feel free to actually chat it and set it up in the Q&A. It'll make it more interactive. And better yet, if you guys can, in the chat section, tell us a little bit about your company, about your organization, about your startup, or about your 20-year company. That way I could draw in examples of your actual business and humanize this experience a little bit more, bring it down to earth, and help us understand how we can use investors and our loan options to grow our small business. So as we mentioned in the very beginning, this is part 2 of a 2-part series. Part 1 was all around how to make ourselves bankable by understanding what bankers want and need and care about. And David was able to provide us some great context of what are the things that we're looking at when we think about banking, the 5 C's. And then in this session, we're going to dwell and dive a little bit deeper into other forms of investment for your small business or your startup or your your scalable company through private investors. So who am I? Why am I in front of you today? And how can we work together? My name is Roberto Martinez. I am the Google digital coach and trainer for Google. I also have my own marketing agency and software company. If you guys like this presentation and you want to keep coming to more, we have anywhere from 3 to 5 different workshops a given month. Feel free to follow us on the g.co/Google Coaches LAX. And if you have any questions pertaining to Google tools and services, very important here to plug anything when it comes to Google tools and services. I will try to help you as best I can. If I do not have that answer, I'll find someone within my team at Google that does have that answer. And then you can follow me on my social media handles, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I'm here to help you guys, and I'm here to help you guys access as much of Google as possible for free and paid tools. All right, let's get started. As Olivia was mentioning, I am an owner of a small business, of a marketing firm, but I am not a tax professional and I am not a lawyer. You know, your kitchen cabinet, as we were calling it last time we presented, or your team members that you need to grow your company should include your tax professional and your lawyer, right? We want to be able to ask those individuals questions that help us understand how do we get to the next phase. I have a really good friend of mine, Peter Jackson, does amazing work. He's a good friend, but he's also a tax professional and a banker, and he understands the ins and outs of banking. And he's given me some priceless advice throughout the years, primarily being build your credit now, figure out which credit cards actually report to the credit bureau, build that revenue perspective banking stream, because you never know when you're going to need it. So obviously, this is high-level information for most of us here, but if you do have further questions, feel free to reach out to your tax professional lawyers. The LA Chamber of Commerce has an amazing network of tax and lawyer professionals within the small business industry that you can definitely reach out to. I'm sure Olivia can be more of assistance when it comes to that. But for now, that's my disclaimer for this presentation. Now let's actually dive into what we're actually going to talk about today, which is all around understanding the different funding mechanisms. And there's a very key distinction here that I want to kind of approach right away. Anna, thank you so much for joining us. Mean Stitching and Dario, always appreciate you joining us. EC Media, an amazing organization out of Norwalk. But we're going to talk about funding, developing a funding strategy, searching for investors, creating a funding presentation, which is how you actually communicate. You know, you hear stories about very famous billionaires that started out their journey. And I mean, Bill Gates comes to mind. He said he got turned down like 89, 93 times before anyone invested into his company, Microsoft. So, and how did he do that? Creating the presentation and then going out to as many investors as possible and getting in front of them. And it's a process of practice makes perfect. I mean, that's the one thing I would take away from all my friends who got investors to support their company. They're like, you have to have a tough skin, you have to be willing to pivot, and you have to be willing to take criticism. And you can't be, you know, scared of getting to know. Right? You have to present as many times as possible. That tool is the funding presentation. But let's start in the very beginning, which is understanding funding. And let's just think through why you would need to secure a line of credit or why you would need to secure some funding mechanisms. And the first thing we have to understand is what is the operational cost of running and managing our business. Most of us here already know that. I know we have our companies for a couple of years. We already know this ins and outs, but that's like the first step. We just need to know the operational cost and then be able to make some judgment calls on how much revenue needs to come in and how much revenue is going out in the form of cost versus rev, or cost of COGS. They're called COGS in the financial, in the accounting world. COGS of goods sold versus revenue. And then when you have an equilibrium, which means the money coming in and the money going out is even, that's called the break even. When most businesses get started, they have what's called a burn rate, which is how much money I'm going to spend prior to hitting that break even. And that's like the 2-year, what most entrepreneurial professionals call Death Valley, which is when you get started in your company, you're not going to just open the doors and make millions of dollars. It's going to take time for you to get out of that little dip in the negative until you break even and then start making money. So you need to start estimating that profit, see how much money you need to break even. What's your burn rate? How much am I spending a given month, right? And how much am I bringing in? And how long is it going to take? Do I project it's going to take till I get to zero, right? Money coming in, money coming out is equal, and then it starts making more money. What are different ways I could secure capital, either working capital or long-term investment capital, to keep growing my company? How do I attract investors? And maybe get some tax savings. This is why accountants are really important, and the controllers are extremely important. So I just want to give a quick overview. There's two different funding mechanisms. This presentation is all about debt growth, and venture capital or private investment growth. And so when I started off, and I have really good friends that would say, hey, I'm going the investor route. That's the way I want to grow. The challenge that you have, it's always a cost benefit to anything that you guys are doing. You guys know this already. You guys are seasoned business owners. But when you think about why would someone choose debt over investor, there's one key reason. Does anyone know why you would choose debt over investor growth for capital? Does anyone think they have some idea of why you would choose that route as opposed to finding an investor? Why we would rather go to David Mora and ask the bank to let us borrow money as opposed to going to our friends, families, and fools or private investors and ask them for money?
You get to keep the equity in your firm.
Beautiful, Roy. That's exactly right. You don't give away any of your company, right? When you're give the bank, yeah, you might have some collateral that you might have to put up, but that is against the collateral that you're pulling up. So they can't go after your actual company versus investors. You're giving out a percentage of your company. I think our good friend from Amazon, he has 18% of his company. So he doesn't own the whole thing, but he gave it away as he was growing the company to attract certain people to his company. And that's usually your founding core. You want to give certain equity. It's up to 20%, 25%, depending who you talk to. And to bring in the type of talent that you need to scale the company, and then vested and non-vested stocks that you can do for those individuals who are coming in. You can make a lot of clauses, but that's, Roy, exactly right. It's not to give away your company, because let's say your company becomes a multi-million-dollar company and you create those stocks. The people that you're giving that stock to actually owns part of that company and part of that growth that you have. And so you have to make a judgment call. There's different structures that you can create when it comes to venture-backed growth. But that's what you want to think about. How much do I want to give away in my company? How much do I want to keep? And which method is best for me as a small business or a startup? So again, like as we mentioned in the very beginning, we definitely want to start understanding how your expenses come. The first workshop was really about understanding your balance sheet and your pro forma statement, your financial statement, and understanding what makes sense, so that when you go out and you talk to your prospective investors, you actually have some numbers for them to look at, some accounting numbers of showing them what was my growth year over year for the past couple of years. And usually when most people are looking for investors, or the investors looking for rapid growth, and just FYI, most VCs that you're dealing with, they might invest into 100 businesses, and only 2 might make it into what are called unicorn status. And so those 2 are going to pay for the 98 that didn't quite make it. They might have become great companies, $3 to $5 million revenue, but they didn't scale to the point that the VC feels comfortable with the type of return on investment they're looking for. So when you think about your own company and what you can provide and what the investor cares about, you want to start thinking about, how much money do I need? And do I want to give away some of my equity, some of the value of my company, to a private investor or a professional investor? Or can I keep it and go the debt route? And the only way you understand that is by understanding what the revenue stream is and what you're using your capital for to grow that company. And how do we make these calculations? Well, the first thing is, you have to have a snapshot of your actual company when it comes to revenue. And the way you do that is you start calculating your monthly cost. And I'm going to mute a line just because I'm getting a lot of feedback from someone. Can you guys mute your lines, please?
Hello, can you please mute yourself?
Thank you. So when you think about the monthly cost, whoops, what would this be? So when you think about your monthly cost, is how much money am I spending and what am I investing in that for growth? Annual costs, usually your account they do quarterly budgets for you. They show you how much you spent this quarter, next quarter, and then they match it to the following quarter from last year. Right now, we're living in the wild, wild west because last year was COVID. So we can't really gauge. So it's a brave new world, which is good and bad, right? We can start projecting out, hey, we're going to do a better year than last year, obviously, because we're returning to normalcy, whatever that means. And so we have better projections, and maybe some people are more willing to take a risk with you, especially if you're into certain industries like digital or other, because that's seen a huge growth. If you see the growth of Zoom and telemarketing and remote space, that took off because everyone's working remotely now. So if your company is similar to that, maybe people are more willing to take a chance with you and provide you some of that budget. But first things first, we have to understand what our expenses are, what the cost of the expenses, and what providing an infusion of capital will do to the growth of our company. And that's one of the things that it just takes time, creating that spreadsheet, understand what you need to pay for now and understand what you need to pay for in the future. So once you understand your funding options, you can have better idea of what your business plan is. And you definitely don't want to get into trouble and get into debt if you don't need to. So what I always recommend is, what is your growth trajectory? What you want to do is, and this is a little bit more sophisticated, and we kind of don't touch on in this presentation, but what I would highly recommend you do if you are looking for debt or venture back or private investment back capital, is to create a financial model. So what is a financial model? What are we talking about when we talk about financial modeling? All that means, and there's a lot of free courses online. Coursera has an amazing course from University of Penn that does an excellent job on how to create financial models. You could hire people, a couple $1,000 to create you a financial model for your business. And what they'll do is they'll take an assessment of your business financially and see how much revenue came in, what were the expenses, and this is the important piece. What would happen if you increase capital and use an infusion of capital into your business? And I'm gonna simplify this, I'm gonna give you guys a very high level, but in essence, if I increase your capital by 1,000, how much does revenue increase? By 5,000, how much does revenue increase? By 10,000, how much does revenue increase? And there's other leading indicators, headcount. Does headcount increase or decrease? Operational costs, which has all to do with headcount, rent, all that stuff. So as I infuse capital into your company, what is the growth of that company? And that is, in my opinion, what some investors care most about. They care about your team, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but they also care about your projections based on your financial model. So it's really important to understand your numbers and understand what an infusion of capital does for your business so that you grow. Sometimes we just say, hey, we need money. We just need more capital. We need access to capital. But if you have that piece down, then at least it's a navigational tool, if you will, that helps you understand where you're going if you do have that infusion. So what are different ways we can go about securing some of those budgets, right? Self-funding, bootstrapping. A lot of people who start off, the hustle's real, right? We want to make those side jobs, side hustles. We have our 9-to-5 job, or whatever that happens to be. And then we start up with an idea. We're like, hey, we want to test this idea out. So we self-fund and bootstrap to see if there's a market fit in our idea. So we have this idea of a product or service. We don't know if it's actually going to work or not. And then we test out the market while maintaining our business or maintaining our 9-to-5 job. That's usually how I would say the majority of people start off. That's how I started off. I was making a lot of money to a lot of big companies. And I realized, why can't I do this for smaller businesses? Or why can't I get a bigger return of that share? And so that's how the company was launched. Another way is small business loans. You start understanding, hey, I need some working capital. What is working capital? Well, let's say I own a print press and print is booming, which is not really, but for example, and you need to buy another printer, right? Or let's say, this is a very, very near and dear to my current standings. I need to hire more developers. So I'm developing a CRM tool. I've invested, let's say $100,000 already. But I know if I bring in 2 or 3 more developers, the capability of the CRM is going to improve and increase. And I know that I need to do that to capture, let's say, an RFP, a contract, whatever it is. So I'm willing to go talk to my banker and say, hey, I need an infusion of $50,000, $150,000, because I have to hit this particular RFP, and I need to have this capability by January of next year. And that is an infusion of small business, infusion of working capital to get me to that place. A microloan is more short term. It might be a month, and it's a little bit less money. A lot of your Latin American businesses or micro businesses use this, and it's a small monoline with a huge interest rate, and that's because that's how they make their money. There's a lot of industries right now that really prey on, and it's true, prey on certain businesses because they need that stopgap. Right, so you're talking interest rates of in the hundreds. It's not like 18%, 25%. We're talking 100%, 200%. I've seen as high as 300% loans. But you can definitely talk to your CDFIs if you need those small loans to hold you over. Let's say you had a bad quarter or a bad month. You just need some revenue, some capital coming in to hold you over. A lot of businesses did this during COVID because they didn't know how long it was going to last. And then the government came in and infused the whole market with capital. And then crowdfunding is that idea. There's a lot of different platforms out there. Kiva, one of them, where you can actually crowdfund and get other people from the general market to invest into your company, and you give a certain return, or you have certain stipulations that I will pay back 10% of whatever the loan is, 7% of whatever the fund is for you supporting my company. So any questions there before we keep going? Does this all make sense? This is all easy. You guys all know this already, right? This is all second nature for most of us here. Any questions? Just a quick take a quick temperature check. We're at the 30-minute mark.
No, I don't see any questions in the chat.
Okay, fantastic. And thank you, Dario, for joining us. So investors, they're going to fund you in exchange for ownership. We talked about that. Roy nailed it. You're going to give up some of your company. If you have $1 billion idea, that's fantastic. Can you bring it to market? Is it a market fit? And there's another piece of investing that is really important to know. There's your three F's, which is super important. But a lot of people, a lot of startups, and a lot of small businesses don't realize that investors also, because they have skin in the game, are now vested in your success. And what does that mean? You can find the right type of investor who's within your industry and your sector that has friends within that industry and sector. This is what the biggest companies do. They figure that become big, right? They're small. They're like, hey, you know what? We don't really need an infusion of capital. We might need some capital, but what we need is market expertise within our industry. We came up with this great idea, but we don't really know that industry very well. So what happens? Well, you find investors who know that industry, who know that sector, who have a network there, a very robust network that can say, hey, I'm going to give you money, but I'm also going to open up my network to you because now I'm invested in your growth and your success. And that is super valuable. I mean, that's almost more valuable than capital. It's one of the other reasons that when you start looking at debt versus investor capital for growth, that's something for me that's an intangible that it's extremely valuable because they already grown businesses and got them to the $1 million, $10 million, $100 million mark. And they know that industry, so they can start connecting you with different channels. One of the things that we're realizing is we might not want to give away our company, but if we do give away some percentage of our company, it's for one of those reasons. That's a big reason for us because we might not understand the fintech world very well. We might not understand the government tech world very well. So we might want to invest into that particular investor pool because they know that industry. So then they'll give us the money and they'll start sending out relationships and setting up meetings for us to meet with these different people to get us over the hump. So really important piece here. I think that's one of the things that most people don't realize that investors do. They open up the doors where before they were closed because they're now vested in your company. So let's talk about Bibiana. And she has a amazing, beautiful basket business, bike basket business. She sold a bunch of them. They're designed differently. She has a very, very talented team. That's another thing that investors really care about. They care about like you live, breathe, and sleep this particular problem that you're solving for, right? And she wants to grow her company. And Bibiana, I mean, that's what she does every single time she's walking around. She's looking at the different bikes, at the different type of baskets that they have. And she wants to understand, like, how do I make this better? How do I make a universal basket for all bikes? So she's always thinking about this, right? And she's trying to figure out, how do I grow my company? So using her example, what can she do to develop a strategy for potential investors? Well, first and foremost is that financial model. How much do I need coming into my business to increase baskets from 100 baskets a month to 200, to 300, to 400? Is there a break-even pace where the money no longer has an effect on the growth of my company, right? And that always happens. You always hit a ceiling, and then you have to do operational excellence, which means you have to bring in a whole group of consultants to see how do you streamline the operations of your business, right? There's always a diminishing return, but to start, we need to figure out what the financial model is. How will you spend that money? Do you spend it on talent, right? Do they find out another supplier? Maybe with the current supplier, there's a backlog, and we all know about the ports. Maybe what they do is like they start sourcing locally or nearshoring in Mexico, because going all the way to China might not be the best approach. Operational, right? They start thinking about different ways to use that money to grow their company. And what kind of risk might concern investors? Are you over leveraged? Do you have a backlog or overabundance of baskets, right? So now it's not an operational question, it's a marketing question, a sales question. Oh, great, you're gonna make me give you a check of $100,000 and you still have inventory of over 1,000 baskets in your warehouse. What is this money going to be used for? You have to have an answer for that. You're going to say, most likely, we're going to do a huge campaign around paid ads, or a huge campaign around a push during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And we need capital, working capital, to allow us to do that, create a more slick website, create more referral codes and all this other stuff. So that's how you might answer those type of questions that your investor. Theodore has a question. If you get VC investors, how does it go if and when you're clash with investors in terms of them getting aggressive beyond you or want more than you're willing to provide? So I've heard of like horror stories of investors calling their investee, their founders, every single day, every single night, and asking them. But professional investors like VCs, they don't really do that. They're more sophisticated, and usually most VCs have an EIR, an entrepreneur in residence, who kind of acts as the middleman between your investor pool and your company and helps mitigate that. Usually they might guide you in certain directions, but it's ultimately your company. They don't own majority stock of your company. In other words, they don't own 51% of your company, so they can't tell you how to run the company. They can advise you, and most of the time that's settled in your contract agreement of what are you giving up. Be careful not to lose control over your company. I've never seen that happen when it comes to VCs, but that's a good question. It's one of the things that you need to figure out the fit. Just like in college, you guys are out, when you guys went to college, one of the first things they tell you is all about fit, right? What college fits my personality, fits my future of where I want to become and end up being. So same thing with VCs. Different VCs focus on different things. One's really good at retail, one's really good at fintech, one's really good at software. And so you need to figure out what's the best fit for your company, right? And that demands of you, again, it's like dating. You're going to date as many people as possible to figure out what you like and what you don't like and what makes sense. And a lot of VCs, some VCs just cut you the check and say, figure it out. Go, here's the money. I'm going to see you in a couple of months, and I want a status report. Other ones are very vested in your success. So it depends how much involvement you want, and that's up to you to discuss with your team and your founders of what makes sense for you. And know your selling points, right? What is the strongest selling point when you're going out to those investors? What kind of return on investments are you offering them? Why would they say yes to you? Are you creating, and maybe this VC is really focused on social mobility, and you're definitely helping that. And that's a big selling point for them. Like, we need companies that we invest in. Yes, they're going to provide a return on investment of 300%. That's usually the average, but they also are changing the way society is structured. And so maybe that's, yeah, we're going to give you the 300%. That's a given, but we're changing the way people move, or we're changing the way people talk to each other, and we're going to drastically restructure society. That's a selling point, right? And it's extremely important to do. And then your value proposition, right? Like, why would they give you the money over someone else? There's a lot of, especially right now, there's a lot of liquidity in the marketplace. Why am I choosing you over someone else? So explaining how you will spend the funds is extremely important. And I already kind of dwelled on this all around your financial model. It's one of those things that it's a necessary tool to have, and you record everything. Like, money comes in, I'm spending on marketing, on talent, on research, on development. You need to iron out those details because they're going to grill you on that. I mean, Every single time I've been on the pitch contest, that's basically what they're asking you for. Great, I'm giving you the money. What are you going to do with it? Why are you going to do that? Is there a market fit? Have you proven concept? I think that's one of the biggest things from investors, as well as like, did you prove your idea out already before I cut a check for you? I want to make sure that we're not in incubation stage. And so there's different type of investors as you move up the value chain. The first investor pool is definitely your friends, families, and fools to get you started. That's like, and then as you become more sophisticated as a company, you start maybe going for Series A round, and there's Series B, Series C, and like down the line, till you either go. And this is part of the goal. Like, what is your end goal for your company? Are you trying to get to 50 million, 100 million? Do you want to keep control? Do you want to exit? 90% of people that I know that go for VC investors, they want to exit eventually. They have like a 5-year runway, and they want to sell to Oracle, they want to sell to Google, whoever it happens to be. So you have to clearly paint that picture for them. Okay, so now enough talking. Let's actually get into some examples. We do have a Google Sheet here that allows you to manage your budget. I want to show you guys very quickly how that looks like. It's a free tool that Google provides you within Google Sheets. So let me just walk you through how that looks like. You guys are also seeing my screen. I am going to go to my Google Drive, and I'm going to show you guys how to get in there. You go to Google Drive, you're going to go to New, you're going to go to Sheets, you're going to go to Form a Template. And right there, you're going to see the template that we want to have here, which is, I think it was, what was it? What was the template they wanted us to pull out? Monthly budget. Where is this at? Does anyone see it? Here it is. Beautiful. And so you could open this up, and this is, I mean, this is a microcosm of what your financial model should look like, but this gives you an idea of your starting balance, ending balance, how much money is coming in, food, what it costs to run your business. And this is just a high level overview for you to understand what you're spending. I think we have a question. David, thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time and being part of this discussion. Okay, so that's one example. If you guys were here last month, you see that we also have other documents that you could use to get started. One of them is your financial statements. And this is a template that you can create and just make a copy of it and run through all your transactions, your P&L, your balance sheet, and your categories. And you and your accountant can develop this out, and they could give it to you every quarter for you to keep track and see quarter over quarter how you're doing to have a better sense of your growth in your business. All right, folks, let's jump back in here. Any questions about these tools that are free for you? This is a Google tools that are given to you as long as you have a Gmail account. So it's no cost to you. All you have to do is sign up for Google Gmail. All right, everyone's good. All right, so describing risk, right? Team risk. I think this is one of the biggest ones. I keep saying that. So, you know, fit, huge. Team, probably as important, if not more important. And what do we mean by team? Who is your team? Who's working with you? Have they done this before? Do they have a track record of success? Or do they live and breathe this particular marketplace? That's extremely, extremely important from an investor standpoint. Usually, investors will tell you this. I don't know how much truth there is, but they'll tell you, we invest in the person, not the idea, because the marketplace moves so fast that we need someone that lives and breathes that, and we need a team around that person that lives and breathes this particular challenge that they're facing. And so they're looking for someone that's the right fit that gets that. So I'll give you an example. Like, whatever your industry is, do you sleep it, breathe it, live it, like every single waking moment that you have? The investors that I've dealt with, they're like, we want people who are maniacal, who are, you know, obsessed. And I mean, they'll use that word to you. Are you obsessed about this problem? Do you lose sleep about this problem? And when I was in private industry and I was in a company, you know, I was like, who wants that? Who wants that lifestyle? And that's a really great, they'll tell you, like, how much hours are you spending? Are you spending only the minimum amount of hours? You know, everyone wants to be a millionaire. No one wants to put in the hours. And reality is, when you get your company started, there is no real work-life balance. It's, you know, 70, 80, 90 hours a given week. Any business owner who's scaled, we all know that's what it's taken. But when you get to the next stage, which is investor-backed money, that's what they want to hear. They want to hear that you are fanatic about this problem and you lose sleep over it. You put in those crazy hours, and the team around you is the same way. Because what they realize, and what most VCs will tell you, they'll tell you that if they invest into that person, they know regardless of what happens in the marketplace and how much pivoting they do, that person's still going to be that person. That person's still going to be thinking about that constantly. So that's why they want to invest into you as that person that thinks about it all day, all night, puts in those crazy hours, doesn't have, like their hobby is this problem. And that's really hard for some people to grasp or to understand the level of commitment that you need to convince some VCs to give you that money, right? And it's like, hey, I just had a friend that got $3 million in venture-backed funding, and he does educational technology. And he was in the industry for 15 years. He was a teacher himself. He became a supervisor, and then he became an administrator, and he realized all these flaws. Then he's like, you know what? I need to solve this problem. Like, I can't continuously have people who are coming through the educational pipeline face the same problems I'm facing. So I launched this company, and I think about it all the time, and I don't lose sleep, and I travel to all these conferences, and everyone knows me to be that guy. And guess what? When you talk to an investor, they're going to look at that. Oh, 15 years within this educational industry, you lived and breathed as you, and that's the story. He left to fix that problem that he experienced as he was going through his career. And so that's what they want to hear. So team is extremely important. Market risk, that's easy. Guys, you guys know this already. Does my product fit in the marketplace? Is there a market demand for it? What's the tangible size of the market? What is the attainable size that I could potentially capture? That's, any marketer will help you do that. That's the easiest part, in my opinion. Execution, can you actually build it? You're making all these promises. Can you actually deliver on your goods? A lot of businesses have great sales reps. A lot of entrepreneurs can sell ice to an Eskimo. But when it comes to execution, do you have people? And the way I always picture it is, it goes back to the team. You want to think about it as a sports analogy, right? You have your quarterback, which is the founder or founders, and then you have different team players. Each person has to know their role. Like I have my really close friends and advisors, and they pulled me to the side 3 months ago, and they say, "Hey, Roberto, we love you, and you're a great guy, and you're very passionate, but you're not a CEO. Like you just don't have that. You're good at marketing. You might be the CMO of that other company that you launched, but we need someone that understands and lives operations, and we need to find that person yesterday." And you have to be open to that, because each person deserves a role in your company that can execute on that role. So being open to that, knowing that just because you launched your company doesn't mean you're the one running your company. It's an extremely hard thing to swallow, but it's one of the things that your investor group wants to know. Like, are you that guy, or do you have people in your team that are just like the running back, what I call the running back, the operational guy that just loves the numbers, that is in the back office from 6 till 6 or till 9 and just working on spreadsheets, models and bottles like all day. That's what they love to do. Or is everyone a rah, yeah, let's go over the hill type of person? Because if the investor sees that, they're like, who's actually doing the work? So you have to have a well-balanced team that can execute. And then getting to customers, again, this is supply chain. Your operational guy should be able to take care of this. All right, how much revenue are you going to generate? I give you $100. How much more are you going to be able to sell? How much does it cost to gain new customers? What's your customer acquisition cost? You're going to have that down. It's called LTV, lifetime value of customers. And this terminology, this particular second piece of this particular slide is called unit economics. Google it, look it up. You guys should have this operationally down. If you guys want to go out there, they're going to ask you what your unit economics are. And that's like customer acquisition cost, lifetime value of your customer, ROAS, return on advertising investment. They're going to ask you for all these unit economics that help them understand, if they give you $100, how far does that go? And then what is your current revenue stream right now? In other words, how many businesses do you have? And then the LTV, which is lifetime value of your customers, right? So the way you want to think about this is, how often does your customer buy from you? So the example I love using is Uber or Lyft, right? 5 years ago, 6 years ago, what did they do? They gave you $20 to adopt and download their app and use their application. Here's $20. We'll give it to you for free. What's the lifetime value of that customer? It's a lot more than $20. I can tell you that, because how many of us are still using Uber and Lyft, right? Thank you, Salazar. Thank you for joining us. And so that return on investment is huge, right? They're coming back and they're coming back and they're coming back. That's your engagement rate. How often do they stay in your funnel buying or using your product and or service? Extremely important piece of information there, because even if you don't go after investors, if you know that number, then you know what the value is for investing in capturing new customers, right? If you know the average cost to acquire a customer is $150, right? Let's just say $100 or $200 to capture a new customer, but you know that customer over the span of a year spends $5,000, then you know, I just need to keep investing $200 to capture new customers to keep increasing. But I'm simplifying it because you're not taking into consideration operations, but that's an example of your customer acquisition cost and your lifetime value. So now you want to search for investors to fund your business. How do we go about doing this? Think about how much equity you want to give up. Never give up everything. Find the different, if loan options aren't the path that you want to take, find different opportunities there with different investors. Really key piece of point. Everyone can be an investor. You can talk to anyone that will willing to invest into your prospective company. The other thing is that you want to create your business plan, your vision, your 5-year out plan. What are you going to make that's distinct and unique for the marketplace? You're going to have your financial statements ready, and you want to project out 5 years, right? To really understand what investors are looking for. You're going to that's like the homework. You should have that already done. The piece that's going to really make the magic is when you actually meet your investor and present to your investor. So where do you find investors? Chambers of commerce have a slew of high net worth value individuals, A, and B, they have partners who are actually part of VCs that you could potentially meet with, right? Economic development agencies, business organizations, and you can also search online to find different investor classes and then get in front of them and kind of pitch them your ideas and see if it resonates with what they're seeing. Does this apply to companies that sell a service rather than a product? 100%, Roberto. It applies to both. A service is the same thing as a product. Like, people are invested into Allstate, people invest into all kinds. What is distinct and unique about your service offering that other businesses have not done, right? If that's really the differentiator. What's your value proposition? In other words, if you're going to talk to me about selling a service that everyone else sells already, then there's no real value. There's a very famous investor who worked with Oracle, who worked in Dell, and what he talked about is you have to build a better mousetrap for institutional investors to back you up. And what does he mean by this? A better mousetrap just means the improvement on the marketplace has to be 300% improvement from whatever else is out in the marketplace. So what does that mean? That means think about your experience in taxi cabs, and now think about your experience in Uber or Lyft. I don't know how they measure it, but that's the argument of a 300% improvement on your experience. And that's a service, right? Correct, CD. Added value. And so that 300% improvement on that experience, product, and or service is what's going to differentiate you. Is going to be like, wow, that's a huge jump of what I've experienced. I'm willing to give you money now because I know other people are also willing to invest because they want that better experience. So how do we communicate that? Well, we need to tell a story, right? We're humans. Humans love stories. We want to document this. We want to create and capture the attention, talk about the strategy, and define the information about the founders. Who are you? Why? What is your work history? Do you live in this space? Do you breathe this space? What are projects that you run in the past? And why you're the subject matter expert over everybody else, right? And that's the value here. You want to meet up with investors, have them like break and rip apart your deck, get feedback, have that thick skin, and present, keeping clear, short, and memorable. I have a hook. There's a lot of books out there that allow you to create a pitch deck. And so Google recommends, obviously, storyline. You want to tell me the story, right? You want to tell me the beginning, middle, and end with some tension in between, like, oh, we almost failed, but then we got the contract for the county and that changed our lives, and now we're ready to scale. Like, create that flow. Visual is very appealing. No errors, right? What do I mean by no errors? Meaning, if you're making simple mistakes, the way you want to think about the investor, they're going to see grammatical mistakes, and they're going to see, that you use it for multiple people and you didn't take them into consideration. You're going to be like, if they can't even get a deck right, and I'm giving them $1 million, why would I do that? How can I trust that they're going to do their business? That's how they think. I know it's not realistic, but that's how they think. So no errors is a really important piece. You'll be surprised how many people have pitched in pitch decks and we see grammatical mistakes or time mistakes, and they put the timing or their deck says 2020 as opposed to 2021. Those little things draw attention away from your presentation and onto those little mistakes. So they're trying to find a reason to say no to you, as opposed to you capturing them and getting them to say yes. So Google does have a presentation deck for you that you would like to use. And let me show you how to get there very quickly before our time runs out. We're at the 6-minute mark. We want to go to new, slide deck, template, and within that, you have the pitch right here. And you click on that and it self-populates a templated pitch. I also want to show you guys one of my favorite pitch decks. Where is it at? I want to say, here we go. This is an amazing pitch deck, and I'll share it with you guys. One of the better ones that I've seen. But these guys are like highly sophisticated businesses. Gives you an idea of like what are the business like? Wow, they work with these amazing companies. Who are their advisors? Wow, Google is an advisor for them. Who are they, right? And what did they create? And now they talk about the team that has, they're stacked, right? They're really deep. Here's all the team. They all work for amazing companies, Google, Nike, Patagonia. And so this shows their pedigree. So if I'm going to give you $10 million, I know that $10 million is going to be well spent. That's in essence what the pitch deck is all about. No one really reads the pitch deck. You just want to speak to it, but it's not what's going to make or break you. And that's a whole other discussion around presentation that we don't have time for. Okay, so let's wrap this up, guys. We're almost at time. You know how to, the presentation, you know how to use it. I'm more than happy to give you feedback if you ever want feedback. Introduction, team bio, presentation of a challenge, the solution, financial information, and conclusion. Whoops. So with that, guys, thank you so much. Always think about the different funding options. If you don't want to give away your company and you don't need expertise, go the debt growth route, develop that strategy, find a list of investors, be methodical in the way you go about it, and create a kick-ass presentation. We have a bunch of free tools that talk about this. Google Primers is an app that allows you to better understand different content and educates you on everything from digital marketing to loans to pitch decks. We also have a bunch of free videos online. If you want future workshops, go to Grow with Google or go to Google Digital Coaches Los Angeles. And thank you so much for your time. I'll turn it over to our team. Let me see, where am I at so I could no longer share. And we're here for you. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you so much, Olivia, for having me here. You're on mute.
Mute. Thank you. Thank you, Roberto. I always learn something new whenever you present, and I'm sure our viewers and participants do as well. You know that it's really important to learn how to tell your story, craft your story, know your information before you go out to any financial institution or investors. Preparation is the key, because that way you know exactly what you need and you're better able to convey it. And sometimes the simpler, the better, because you're not running in circles trying to add to something that isn't. So so I hope, let me see, is David Mora still on? Maybe David has a minute or two to share a little bit more in depth about the loan program that U.S. Bank and other financial institutions are doing. David, are you with us right now? Let me see. Oh,
yeah, he's with us. He's on mute.
He's with us.
You're on mute,
You're
David.
still mute.
Okay, sorry.
There you are.
You know, had a dog barking in the back, so I don't have to make sure. Anyhow, no, I mean we're open for business. We're here to help. You know, at the chamber, we have access to business and technical assistance, and access to great people that can help. I mean, Roberto, I mean your presentation was fantastic. I mean, it's I wish a lot of businesses you know have access to this information, and now they will, because a lot of this is recorded. So thank you again, Roberto. Really appreciate it. And but again, we're here to help. We have a lot of partners are involved with us, and our goal is to, coach the business, but we're also coaching the lenders about your business. We're telling the story as well. You're not in it alone. We're with you. So thank you so much, Olivia, also for coordinating this, and Jules. So look forward to working with some of the businesses.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. So just a couple of announcements. So if everyone can join us on Tuesday, November 9th, we have a great webinar called 5 lawsuits that will devastate your business. That's with Valerie Gonzalez of the San Gabriel Valley Law, and it will be moderated by Gina Zapanta of Zapanta Alder Law. And then also, if you are not a golfer, we have a golf clinic at our 7th annual golf tournament on November 19th from 12 and on. It includes a golf clinic, lunch. It's for a nominal fee. And that is it for today. So thank you very much. Stay in tune. We are planning our webinars and events for the next year. So we will be keeping you posted on everything else. So thank you very much again, and have a great day.
Thank you very
Guys.
much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.